With the release of the Extinction map, the Gacha has finally made its return into the world of Ark Survival Ascended, a much loved creature by many survivors due to their ability of passively producing us the easiest source of resources and loot from the comfort of our own base. The loot tables have massively changed in ASA as opposed to ASE, so in this video I'll be giving you a full guide on Gachas, how to tame them, where to find them, how to set them up in maximising their efficiency and loot production, and to showcase what loot they can actually drop with the different qualities of crystals. I've added timestamps so you can quickly navigate to certain parts of the video. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Firstly, let's quickly show you where they spawn and how to tame them. The only location that you'll find the Gacha spawn in is deep down in the Sunken Forest, which is located in the top left corner of the map. They are pretty common, so you shouldn't have trouble finding one down there. The best thing about the Gacha is that they are very easy to tame. You can tame them with almost anything and everything that you have at hand. Tamed via a unique taming method, when dropping items onto the ground in front of them for them to grab and gobble up, with greenhouse structures seemingly giving the best taming effectiveness, followed by metal structures, and then stone. Or if you're an absolute mad person, you could use tech structures. But I don't know of anyone that wants to do that. I recommend using ceilings because they are cheaper than foundations. A couple of things to mention when taming is that you can only feed a happy Gacha, which means typically whenever other Gachas are nearby, they may become sad. Sad Gachas will usually ignore you, therefore won't eat or drop taming food items. The larger the quantity of item dropped, the faster it is tamed, and of course the higher the quality of item dropped, the better the taming effectiveness. It is best to either split your structure stacks into 20, depending on your carry weight, or you can drop say 100 or 50 stack of any type of structure, and the Gacha will just eat however many it needs from the stack on the ground per feed, which will be 20 structures per feed. And once tamed, you can just pick up the leftover structures from the ground. I personally just tame them with stone structures or metal, because they're much easier to craft, and I'm okay with losing a few levels. One thing to note is that they will literally eat anything even when tamed, so be sure not to throw down your Ascendant pump action shotgun blueprint in front of them. The Gacha ain't choosy, it will gobble those up too. Anyway, if you don't have their preferred taming food at hand, you can even farm up a bunch of stone or wood and whatever is available to you at the time, and just use that to tame them. Of course, you will lose a lot of levels and taming effectiveness using basic resources, but I'm just saying it can be done if you don't really care about their levels. But ideally, you do want some half decent effectiveness, as you will need to level up their crafting skill to a certain amount for them to be more efficient at producing resources and loot. However, if you do want to tame one properly, to gain maximum taming efficiency, you'll be wanting to craft up a bunch of structures. Once tamed and saddled up at level 38, it will produce Gacha Crystals when fed. Speaking of feeding, you will have to keep them well fed, as they chow down on anything and everything like there's no tomorrow, and they will need to be rammed full of food to be able to produce their Gacha Crystals. Ideally, you can ram them full of stone because it is cheap and cheerful, which will allow them to produce a steady flow of Gacha Crystals, and this is what I'll typically do when using them for primarily producing resources. The Pegomastax also received a massive buff, should we say, with the release of Extinction, where it now has the option to pick up Gacha Crystals off the ground, working very similar to the Oviraptor, however not with eggs but Gacha Crystals. And honestly, this ability is a game changer. Have yourself a Pegomastax nearby and enable Gacha Crystal collection via the radial menu, and it will pick up crystals that your Gachas drop. And just in case you are wondering, the range at which the Pego will collect crystals is roughly around 11 foundations in distance and roughly around 10 walls high, so its collection range is surprisingly very good, which is always nice. All wild Gachas will produce different resources once tamed, when accessing their radial menu having 6 options to choose from, which will range from 3 common resources, 2 uncommon resources and 1 rare resource. And if you're lucky enough, you can even find one that can produce black pearls or the very rare element dust. So it's worth taming any and every level when searching for a Gacha specifically for the purpose of producing resources. For the Gacha to be most effective, you will want to only have 1 male and 1 female close together, as if there are more nearby they will become sad, causing them to not drop as many crystals and not pick up items off the ground. And we don't want that, we want our Gachas to be having an absolute blast. You can however own multiple pairs if they are far enough away from other pairs, roughly around 10 or so foundations apart. The quality of loot can be improved by types of food they eat. You can chuck a load of plant species wide traps traps inside them. The game classes these as structures, therefore a great food to feed them to increase their chances of dropping better qualities of loot and better quantities of resources. Another important ingredient for our loot farm is snow owl pellets. Ideally, you want to have 2 to 4 snow owls parked in front of your gachas. The more the merrier, that's what I say, so that whenever the snow owls puke up their pellets, the gachas can automatically pick them up. Once consumed by the gacha, will provide a temporary buff which will increase the quality of loot produced and increases the quantity of the resources inside the crystals when opened. A visual cue in the form of disco lights is visible when a gacha is under the influence of snow owl pellets, which indicates to us that they are partying hard, which is what we want to see. Meeting these requirements of the combination of plant species wide traps and snow owl pellets, while leveling up the gacha's crafting skill to 160% or above, will turn it into a master loot producer. Ideally, if you only want it to produce resources, you probably don't really want to level it past 160%. My gachas have been at it for a while now, about 400 plant species wide traps and 100 owl pellets down, and we have a ton of quality gacha crystals in the Pego, and that is pretty much how you set up a basic gacha farm. Moving on to the main point of the video, what loot can gacha crystals drop us? I've got 3 vaults here lined up, filled with a ton of loot after opening over 100 primitive and ramshackle crystals and over 300 apprentice, as let's be honest, that's the one we'll be wanting to open for the best type of loot. Primitive crystals inside the left vault, ramshackle in the middle vault, and apprentice on the right. As far as I know, apprentice is the highest quality of crystal. They used to be journeyman and mastercraft back in the day in ASE, but they changed that a long time ago from what I remember. Anyway, let's get straight in there. Alrighty, primitive gacha crystals. We got 102 items, as you can see, plenty of ramshackle, plenty of primitive. We got Robin Hood bows, assault rifles, chitin armor, crossbows for days, fabricated pistols, fabricated snipers, flak armor for days, heavy miner's helmet, loads of long neck rifles, metal tools, pump action shotties, very nice, riot armor for days, double barrel shotguns, simple pistols, swords, torches, some war drums, and a water skin. I must admit I'm a bit surprised by the lack of structures in here. I was expecting to see a lot more. I have actually found quite a few structures from the primitive gacha crystals from the wild ones. It does seem that the tame ones drop more weapons over structures, so I won't complain about that. Anyway, let's move on to ramshackle. Bit of an upgrade. It does seem that the same kind of loot is dropping. So yeah, to save you guys the time, the ramshackle crystals basically drop the same as the primitive crystals at just a higher quality. So you'll begin to see some journeyman and more apprentice items. But this is where the motherload's going to be. I have opened up 300 of these bad boys. This is the apprentice gacha crystal vault. And look at that. Woo! We've gone up in the world. So I opened up 300 of these because once you hit 160% crafting skill and above on your gachas, while feeding them plant species wide traps along with the snow owl pellets for the buff, your gachas will tend to make way more apprentice crystals than any of the other qualities of crystal. Besides, if you're wanting them to produce loot, this is the best crystal for that. And I also had to do this all legit, by the way. I could not find any spawn code for gacha crystals that worked, so the video took me a lot longer than I would have liked. Anyway, once again, you can see the loot is the same but of much higher quality. We're seeing a lot of mastercraft items in particular. A nice long neck rifle, ooh, very nice. Loads of nice mastercraft and journeyman pump action shotties. There's quite a few good ones in there actually. And that's about it. Honestly, the best thing about the gachas is most of this stuff is kind of like throwaway. So you could probably stick all this stuff in a grinder if you don't want it and you basically get resources back from it. So it's a win-win situation. And all in all, I'm quite surprised the loot tables from the gacha crystals didn't change all that much from ASE. It's pretty much the same. And that is also going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more. And I'll catch you on the next one. Where I will also be doing a full loot table guide video for orbital supply drops, cave drops, etc, covering everything other than gacha crystals, as I did want to make this as a standalone video instead. So yeah, hope to see you all there. Take care, goodbye.